Hello and welcome to Geekatplay Studio. My name is Amy Chopin and this is Discovering View, our second edition of this series of tutorials. And in this tutorial, I'll be explaining to you a little bit about the ventilators. So first, to show this off to you, we need a plant, because the plants are one of those objects that respond to this. I've got a plant here. It might be a little too short for what I need, which gives us a good opportunity to show you that I can make a new plant. Here, when I go into it, if I try to find some kind of instance of this that works for my needs. So there we have that working. I'll just move my main camera in there a little bit and get that plant well in my view. So now I'm going to bring in a ventilator. This ventilator comes in pointing down. I've moved it over my plant, and you'll see that it has a cone here. And this cone is the spread of where this plant is being affected. Now here I've rendered it in my main camera view. You don't see a plant. That's because the plant has been blown all the way out, probably below the cutoff point, which is that ground plane. So let me change what renders, and let's play around with this a little bit so you can get a good idea of how that works. Now I'm just making this ventilator, and this is a directional ventilator, point in a direction that I want it. So now we see this plant kind of beginning to not be so affected by it. And you can see how these things are affected. There it is, a little more. Now with my ventilators, I can decrease or increase the intensity. And as I decrease that intensity more, you'll see this plant being less and less affected by this. And so there it is, not quite as affected. Now, one thing that you can also do is I can go into this plant editor, and I have a flexibility, a sensitivity to some of the wind options. And that, if we decrease that of the trunk and branches by just a little bit, click OK, and it might not be quite as affected. So there's a little bit that you can do there, and some other options that you can work with when working with wind. We'll touch on those in a little bit. So this is a ventilator, and we have that cutoff point, and you just increase that. And see, now it's still hitting that plant, but it's not quite as intense. So you can get it very soft, but reaching far away. And this spread basically works with how the angle of your directional. And there's a fall off, how fast around that angle that the wind disappears. That's what the fall off is. Now the second type of ventilator that we have, I'm going to delete that ventilator, is this omnidirectional one. And the only thing that has, there goes that ventilator, is that it goes in all directions. It's not like a fan pointing in one direction. And it also has the intensity and cutoff, but not some of the other things going on. So now I've got it really heavy on that, and once again I've reduced that intensity, and you see those reduce, and we can increase the cutoff and and see how that decrease the cutoff, and just see how that wind affects your plant. And you'll just be playing around with this and fine-tuning it and seeing what it does to the plant. And this also can be animated, and so you can change things how they go with the wind and how that affects that. Now, one other thing I want to show you with the plant, when I click on a plant, I'm going to delete that ventilator, is I have on the side of a plant this little blue triangle. This little blue triangle is also a wind option. Right now I don't have anything on it and my plant is standing up nice and tall. But now if I take this and I click on it and I drag it, I'm dragging it in a wind direction. Now as I'm dragging it, I want you to look down here at the bottom left of the screen, and you'll see that it's showing me an intensity of the wind and a direction of the wind, and so you can see that, so that can help you with your other wind, and you can see how that changes your plant. And what this is useful for is an overall wind effect. What the ventilator is useful for is perhaps something like a helicopter, or maybe you want one particular plant to be dealing less well with some kind of a windy scene than other things. So those are a little bit how ventilators work, how you can get wind in your scene. And you can also get it in the atmosphere editor through the clouds with the cloud animation and the direction. Here now this is available, and you can change this direction. And you saw that below I had, when I was moving that wind there, I had a direction that the wind was blowing in, and I can make that go with the direction that my clouds are moving in, and change my velocity, and the rate of change is also going to give you an idea of how stormy a scene you're creating there if you have an animation. So there's just a little bit about wind, about things you can do with it. Thank you for watching this Geekatplay tutorial. If you have any questions, want to know more about us, more about View, please visit us on the web at www.geekatplay.com.